All right, what is going on, Sport Card Fiends? We are back again for the third episode of Sports Card Corner. We have myself, Alec, or Cutting Edge Cards on Instagram, and I am joined by Caleb. How you doing, Caleb?
Oh, I'm pretty good, you know. We fluffed up the recording. We, Alec?
Yeah. We both messed it up before.
We both did. Or maybe it was me. But so we're back. We kind of a little technical difficulties.
Yeah, episode 3.5. We got it good. So yeah, we tried to get a podcast out about last week. I had to go on a little mini vacation to visit some family, and before that we had some technical difficulties. So we are here again. Luckily, we didn't miss too much because NBA and other sports decided to hold out. It was quite torturous for me, being with family with nothing else to do, to have the only thing stripped from me that I love. It was tough, but we are back and doing A-okay.
That was crazy. Obviously we get it with the movement.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot with too many messed up videos, so I totally understand. A lot of bad stuff happening, but I'm really happy they continue to play basketball because I had a little scared Kyrie Irving moment where where a couple teams said, "Hey, we don't want to play anymore," and that would have massively sucked.
Yeah, it's tough. And Kyrie, obviously at the beginning of all of it, trying to say to make the own league and sit out, he's probably taking a little victory lap after these discussions. It's not anything you like to think about, but luckily we are back and we got basketball up and rolling, and we'll get to that here after a little bit. We like to start off with a little bit of soccer just because we've been avidly collecting soccer for a good bit, right? We've been on top of it, so most of that's going to end up starting off in the next month or so. Basically every single league is going to be back up and running, and we can get on into the seasons there. But to start, we have the U.S. men's national team qualifying schedule has been released for the 2022 World Cup. And essentially it starts off in next June, where they will play 3 games in June, and then essentially we'll have a total of about 12, 14 games between June and March of next year. So,
that's
14
awesome
games, and as we know, the card market's all about eyeballs and hype, and if you can jam that many games for World Cup qualifying in that short of a time, it's definitely a place we like to be, right?
Yeah, hopefully, a lot of our players are actually, going to be playing during that time. So hopefully they don't get in trouble too much for Pulisic sneaking away. And now that Weston McKennie is hitting Juventus.
Oh, yeah.
With Ronaldo. That's pretty exciting. That's some news, too. Man, can you imagine some highlights of those two feeding each other goals next season?
Oh, yeah. We're going to have all of our youngsters just up and ready to go, and that's another hype part about it, I guess. We aren't as interested in hype necessarily, but obviously hype brings increased prices and gets a lot of people going. So if we can be in early, we are absolutely ecstatic to be there. And we've just been stocking up on U.S. men's national team players in hopes that this goes well. If we had another 2018 episode, it'd be about the end for us too.
Yeah, we bet the farm. We'd be crying. No.
Yeah, in terms of soccer cards, we both agree that they're a good play overall, but even in terms, especially of U.S. men's national team players, like you're going to have the 2022 World Cup, and then while that's going to be kind of like a learning process for us, no matter what, the 2026 World Cup is going to be hosted in the U.S., so I just feel like that is the safest hedge of all time, and we don't even have to qualify for that. Host nation gets to stay in it, so we'll be easy. But
I cannot wait, man. Now that's going to be so epic to have a World Cup here and be able to see that.
Regardless of card prices,
so
And
if U.S., again, we have a lot of really good young guys, again, now playing on some pretty good teams. Also, Sergio Dest, it's also looking to maybe make a move to the Champions League winners this year. Bayern Munich is interested, so.
Yeah. Be a backup there, but I mean, it's still. I mean, Pulisic on Chelsea isn't the biggest, but obviously going to a good Prem team, sick. And then you got Weston McKennie on Juve and him on Bayern. I mean, making some names out there, making some waves.
Really exciting. I mean, Weston McKennie's the first ever American to play on Juventus.
Oh yeah,
that's like the team in Italy. You know, they have 26 now of the championships in their league, I think. Jesus. I can't remember if it was 25 or 26 this year. I think it was their 26 with Ronaldo, but insane.
And they're pretty high on Weston McKennie from what I can tell by how they signed him. Essentially, if you're a team like in Juve, you can only have a certain amount of players. Like, it's very few that aren't of European descent. So if you can only have like 2 or 3 players of that caliber, and they are willing to put Weston McKennie as one of them, that obviously speaks pretty highly. And in addition to that, it appears that they have like clauses to buy him. Like, there's obviously options to buy because right now he's currently on loan. But if they end up making the Champions League, I believe that triggers one of the clauses to buy. And I mean, it seems like a given that they're going to be there again. I mean, if Ronaldo's not in the Champions League, I mean, what's going on, you know?
As long as Ronaldo's there, unless there was just like, I mean, the stadium crumbles down, like they're going to be top. They're going to be top 4.
So. Yeah, Italy falls back into a COVID crisis, I guess. It's about the only thing that I could see keeping them out. But I mean, overall, a lot of hype right now for the U.S. men's national team. It's not even, a piece of what it will end up being, whether that be in the 2022 World Cup or 2026. So we were both really excited for that. And I mean, in terms of soccer, there's not too much going on outside of that, but the biggest thing that's been going on is the Messi leaving rumors, potentially exiting from Barcelona. I mean, that's just been absolutely crazy to see in the news cycle. I mean, he's been there for his entire career, ever since the youth academy. Yeah. Like, it's just nutty to think about.
Yeah, I mean, just crazy. Again, he's like, this year if he played and he has about the same amount of goals as what Messi does, he would break Pele's record for most goals with a single club team. So I personally think that's a pretty big and important benchmark, for Messi to have. And if he's that dissatisfied with the team and just all the stuff going with it, it kind of makes sense. And it also, it makes sense for Messi on almost a business standpoint to go over to Europe to dominate the league, which he would. And just kind of, again, I don't know how you could get more famous than soccer than Messi, but I think by going over to the Premier League, he could possibly elevate his status even just a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just kind of like, what Ronaldo's doing, just hopping around and gather as much fans as you can. I mean, it worked for Zlatan to an extent. He just basically went everywhere, and, at the end of the day, you can make as big of a name for yourself as you want, but you can still always bring in the kind of casuals to, understand your name even more. I mean, in terms of, like, card prices and stuff, like, just because someone doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be buying or investing in that player, but if you've seen them and you can, you actually understand their potential and what they can do, then that gives you a whole nother feeling of connection to them, I guess. So, yeah, it would have been crazy. He was thinking. I mean, at this point, it's kind of died down a little bit to where it looks like he might be staying at Barca for a while there. Whenever I was gone, it was looking like they were just gonna hold out, and it was City all the way. And the crazy part with City is there would have been like a year or two at the end that he might have gone to New York, which, I mean,
could you imagine?
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine leaving him. But
sold out.
Yeah, to go into the MLS, people would be pumped. I mean, people can call it a retirement league as much as they want, and maybe to an extent it's that, but at the same time, someone like Zlatan came over here and people called it a retirement league, and now he's back in Serie A still tearing it up. So, I mean, is Serie A retirement league then? I don't know, but I mean, just to see Messi here would have been nuts. I wouldn't have even. Everyone would have been going. I would have definitely found my way to a game or two, because there's just no way you can't.
No, I mean, just historical significance of soccer, and just for him, like, David Beckham definitely made soccer relevant here. I remember it as a kid when he came over. Like, it was a big deal.
Yeah, same.
Even more than Zlatan, but
Mm-hmm. But yeah, different caliber of celebrity.
Yeah, I mean, and David Beckham was obviously famous for other reasons than Zlatan. Like, you know, he was attractive. He had the cologne commercials, the clothing brand deals. Like,
yeah, women he was kind of a
pretty boy as well.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I mean, he was just massive, and to think that Messi could do the same thing, like, he would, just to an even bigger extent. I mean, Messi's been on the cover of like so many FIFA games. You know, many kids know Messi, and to see him could spark something, not just in the, you know, soccer, the card market, but like, you know, it could help make America better at soccer.
Oh yeah, definitely would influence a lot of the youth and a lot of the next generation, and I think that's what, as card collectors, I mean, it's kind of nice because I feel like soccer has more long-term potential in the sense that the fans and the newer generation definitely has a lot more interest in it than, you know, some of the older people that might have more money that might be, you know, kind of pushing the hobby forward in other types of sports. Like you definitely have a younger mix that is in here that is giving it more potential long term, in my opinion. I mean, I think you'd agree.
It's statistically, I think one of the, like, just by people who watch it, one of the youngest sports. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think, you know, like we said, like FIFA has a big deal to do with it. You know, and just, yeah, I mean, I think it is a young sport, and that's obviously why Alec and I have invested so much money into it, is because, we like it in the first place. We think it's exciting. And, again, there is just so much more room to grow because these people outside of the U.S. are the most famous people in the world. These soccer athletes are. I mean, I think it went Roger Federer was number 1 highest paid athlete, and then it went Messi and Ronaldo, Neymar as 2, 3, 4 this year. It just came out.
Yeah,
so
that's nutty.
That's how big soccer is, you know. So
yeah, that's the thing from a soccer collecting standpoint. You have both of the positives, I guess, of the U.S. Eventually, you know, you would imagine interest continues to grow, and then, you know, the younger generation gets older, and then on top of that, you have worldwide interest in cards that could also be getting better, which I think with social medias and people spreading their opinions, you know, I think there's a lot higher chance of that happening now than there would have been 20 years ago, you know.
Oh, 100%. And soccer cards, because the other markets are getting excited, you know, there's more soccer cards being printed than there was 5 years ago. You know, you can still, I think I'll be really excited to see next year, you know, because where I'm at, you know, soccer cards aren't really stocked in the shelves, but I think that there's a high potential with how well cards have been selling and how well soccer cards have been doing this year. I think if soccer can hit like Targets and Walmart shelves besides like Topps Attacks, but actually have like, you know, Topps, you know, Donruss or whatnot, having those on the shelves, I think would be an insane thing for soccer cards. That would be really exciting for me as an investor, because, you know, again, you know, the second that, you know, like kids can start buying those cards, I think there's a lot of room for growth.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And like Prism, I mean, up until now, they've only done 2 World Cup years, and now they're finally starting to do Premier League Prism. They did that last year for the first time, and, you know, eventually I think that'll just keep on growing along with the hobby as a whole. But getting on to something that, you know, I guess has been just absolutely growing as a whole has been the basketball market. I mean, you know, obviously the only thing really available to watch right now, unless you're into, I guess, like golf or tennis. But as far as card collecting goes, most people are going to be in the basketball realm right now. And as far as, I guess, what we can cover, I mean, the first thing that sticks out to me, and luckily I guess we're doing this a little later, so we already know at this point, but are you worried about the Bucks? Because I am. I'm pretty worried.
I mean, I've been worried about the Bucks. I mean, we've said it in the last podcast, like, who's going to score? Yeah. And Chris Middleton has looked garbage and has continued to look not his all-star self for the last while now. So the Bucks are in trouble. They're 100% in trouble. We saw last year in the playoffs that, you know, Giannis, if you just stack that paint, you know, it's going to be hard for him. You're going to cause him to have charges, and he's going to get a lot of fouls on the defensive end because he's aggressive and a good defender. and the refs don't swallow their whistle. So it's, they're in big trouble. I don't know. There's been a bunch of media stuff on the news that Giannis is a Pippen. He's not a Jordan. Like, all that stuff. Poor Giannis, man.
You see Pippen get mad? Pippen was fighting back with Richard Jefferson. He was pissed.
Yeah.
He's like, don't you call me Giannis. I'm better than that, man. But, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely scared, too. Like you said, I mean, Giannis obviously has the foul potential. I mean, I think in Game 1, I think he had 3 fouls in the first half, and in Game 2, I know he did. So, if you're gonna be halfway out of the game early in the second quarter all the time, like, that's obviously a reason to be a little weary. Like most of your stars, you can play 40-plus minutes in an NBA playoff game if you really, really need it. And with them, they still are only playing Giannis as much as they did during the regular season, basically. And that, I mean, it may be due to circumstance, but it's definitely not what you like to see. And, I mean, Spoelstra, I think, is an underrated coach overall, and he's been definitely drawing up a lot of defenses to help, exacerbate the problems that Giannis has offensively. So it's tough. I mean, Miami has everyone. They can score almost anywhere. Like there's like 5 to 7 different dudes that could just go off on a night.
And that's just what you need to be a good playoff team. I mean, again, every championship team, it can't be understated. Like, obviously you have those superstars that are going to score lots and lots of points. And, when you need a bucket, they can just go get it. But all those playoff teams, like for all those middle of the pack guys, you need a few of them because some aren't going to be on and some are. And, they're not consistent. And the Heat have a bunch. The Celtics have a bunch. I think even I like the Lakers and the Clippers. They also have bench guys that can get you sometimes 20-point nights. And the Bucks it isn't that way for them, and they definitely feel, less. Or even the Rockets. The Rockets have players, that I feel like have more scoring potential than the Bucks. So that's just where it is you have to have a deep team. It's, unless you are the Warriors that have 3 absolute scoring gods on your team who can drop 100 by themselves, like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's very true. I don't know. I mean, obviously being down 2-0, we can say now that it's problematic. But like you said, I mean, we were talking about this, in our last pod, and we were talking about this in the 3.5 or in the 2.5 pod that didn't get uploaded. I mean, we've been worried about the Bucks for a hot second, and obviously that stems from Giannis's shooting, his inability to, and the lack of significant playmakers that you can just trust in a playoff game. Like they've shown that they don't necessarily have that. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, we'll see how the rest of the series plays out, but they are definitely climbing out of a hole currently. But in terms of who's impressed you the most during the first 2 rounds, I mean, I think we both agreed on it whenever we recorded this last time, and I don't think it's changed. But who are you thinking? What's got your mind?
Well, I mean, obviously there's the man who's just a tier above, who's already out, sadly, and that's Luka. I mean,
yeah,
my goodness, just a walking triple-double, but not just a triple-double. Like, it's enough stats for, like, 2 guys.
Yeah, he had more points, rebounds, and assists than Paul George had in, like, 3 games combined.
In a single night. I mean, he's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, I knew he was good. Pablo was definitely... I mean, both Alec and I were both thinking, like, how well can Luka respond to this playoff pressure? But it was a silly question because, I mean, when he was with Man U, right? And he won the championship as like a 16-year-old.
But yeah.
Or yeah, Real Madrid. Sorry, yeah. When he was with Real Madrid, winning championships by himself as a 16, 17-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, geez Louise. He is the real deal, and I think it's just a matter of time before it's his league.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, and it really I think we talked about this in a recent pod, just kind of the Luka versus Giannis debate. I mean, I know that they are, like, in terms of cards, they're a different era because Luka obviously much later when basketball cards had kind of taken off a lot more and there's a lot more pop, but I mean, when you just compare them, I would much rather have any stock in Luka cards than Giannis cards. I feel like Giannis could be such a liability, while I feel like the only liability that Luka could be is in terms of getting injured, right? I mean, that's the only risk I really see.
And, being young and coming into the NBA, you're probably going to get hurt. There's very few players that don't get hurt, miss a good chunk of time, or just in any pro athlete, when you're in the pros, besides the NFL, where hopefully you've made your body like tough enough to not get injured like that, unless it's something freak. Like, it's just playing 82 games is your body's going to have to get ready to handle that. And so I think he's going to be fine. He looks so good. I mean, it looks like sometimes he's just walking to the basket sometimes. Yeah, just walking down the lane. His shots he gets so much space for himself. Not just that step back three, but just in so many different moves. He has tons of tools in the tool basket. He can post up, dribble, drive. He's he's not just a decent rebounder. He's a really good rebounder for a 3 spot. Like, it's impressive. Or, I mean, he's the one, but he's positionless, which is what you want for this age of basketball. I feel like he can solidly probably guard a 1 through 4.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly what you're looking for. But yeah, I mean, I definitely agree as far as who I'm impressed with the first round. I mean, that is what we talked about that we were going to be keeping an eye on in our last pod. It's just what Luka's ceiling would be, and I think he's absolutely shown that. Like MJ would say, the ceiling is the roof for this guy. He's got it. He's ready to go. But yeah, I don't know. I couldn't see how people would be willing to spend crazy amounts of money on Giannis, but then, how you wouldn't think that Luka could do the same thing's pretty nutty. And when you look at Luka's prices, I mean, you can say basketball is all kind of, I mean, the cards in general are eyeballs and what people are hyped about, and obviously he's out of the playoffs now, but his cards are worth essentially how much they were worth pre-bubble. And I've learned so much more about this man to think that I would be willing to pay the same price. Now, I think they probably drop a little bit more because, like we'll talk about later, there's an off season. There's a set amount of time where nothing will be happening, of course. So you can try to find a dip there. But, I mean, in terms of if you were ever thinking about buying Luka, I think that this is the year, and you find a dip that you can get in on and just run it from there. I feel like, he can go anywhere. It's his league, honestly.
So. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to circle a player to buy and, there's so many variations, too. Like, you definitely don't just have to get his Prism. Like, even, not his Optic. Like, just his Donruss base rookie. Like, that's a great option. I think the NBA Hoops from that year is not too bad either. You might actually, Hoops may be the better play just because Donruss has Optic. So maybe just because NBA Hoops is its own set thing, that might be better. That might be interesting to talk about later, but... there's a tons of different levels. You can get in for, depending whether you're getting it graded or raw, for probably like $100 to $200. Which obviously that's not nothing, but I think that again, like Alex said, like there's going to be time to pick up this guy, and I couldn't be more of a buy on this dude. He's so impressive, and if Porzingis doesn't get hurt, we might be watching Dallas Mavericks. In the second round.
No, it's definitely true. I mean, there's just not a whole lot else we need to say. I mean, he showed us everything, and if you don't believe, I mean, now you do. So, and speaking of teams you might not be believing in right now, I mean, as far as who looks the worst, I think we can both agree that it's the 76ers, right?
Yeah, poor guys. It's tough.
I mean, without Ben Simmons, I guess, but at the same time, they essentially showed, no heart in that series. So, I don't know. Yeah. And obviously, Brett Brown's gone now, so I guess they'll throw in another coach and run it back, probably, and just hope that something works. But they have 2 of the most untradeable contracts in the league with Al Horford and Tobias Harris, and it's just... I don't know what you do with them, honestly. They're just destined to do this, it seems like, forever.
Yeah, it's just tough. I mean, how do you not re-sign Jimmy Butler when you're crazy bounce Kawhi shot away from going to the Eastern Conference Finals? And obviously we're seeing it now. Jimmy Butler's the real deal. Weird stuff in what happened with the Timberwolves, I don't know. It didn't seem like it was Jimmy Butler again. The dude just wanted to win. He wanted to play.
He's definitely branded himself well.
No, yeah, and I couldn't fault it. that was such a confusing situation from the Timberwolves. And I definitely felt like side with Jimmy Butler. And then he goes to Philadelphia. They caused no noise. He seemed like a good leader, like all the great clips of him, encouraging his teammates to keep shooting and stuff. Like, and the Heat, I don't know. He fits so well with that fiery, like, Heat, Spoelstra and Pat Riley personality. That seems like a great fit. But, man, like, the 76ers could have had that this year with Embiid and Butler. And you feel like that's a great chance to make a really nice run in the Eastern Conference. And I don't get how anybody in their right minds thought Jimmy Butler, a guard, it would be a better fit than Al Horford.
Yeah, paying old Al a good chunk of change just to come down and not even really play a position he wants to because he's forced to just kind of sit out there by Joel, and then Joel sometimes wants to sit out there too. It's just such a funky lineup, and then obviously you have the problem with Ben Simmons, and you already have two big guys that in theory would like to kind of hog some paint, and then you got to share with him, and it's just far too much. And I mean, the implosion, I guess, isn't necessarily too unforeseen, but just how it went down and how mercilessly they just got destroyed. It's like I don't know. You definitely have to make some big moves, and I don't know if the Sixers are gonna, because it's hard to absolutely fold on the process and what you tried to sell people on for losing for so long, just to end up going out in the first round, second round, a couple years, and then call it. I mean, it's hard to sell to a fan base. I feel like and get pretty upset pretty quick, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, I feel bad for Embiid. He didn't have a bad playoff series. But like what are you gonna do? You're a post in 2020 for basketball. Like, you can score 40 points and you can almost win a game. But like, the three ball is so important. Being able to drive, and again, like, positionless basketball, and he fits it better than most. Being able to shoot threes and shoot outside, but he needs somebody else that could put up points. And obviously, Ben Simmons wasn't there to help with that. But even still, like, Ben Simmons can't shoot.
yeah. It's, oh man, if only people just keep asking themselves that.
Hey, keep buying Ben Simmons cards. Yeah, it's gonna come around.
He'll develop a jumper one day. I swear. He shoots them in practice sometimes. But going from one implosion to another, I guess we'll hop on over to the college football season. At least for a couple conferences, as we well know, as a Michigan fan and a Nebraska fan, it's been tough times out here. But apparently, it might be playing in October, November. I guess they're kind of folding their hand there, kind of giving up their stance. So hopefully we'll be able to see that. But I mean, overall, what do you think? I guess there's gonna be some sort of college football season, but if this ended up going more poorly than I guess we imagine, and maybe some conferences have to start calling it, or maybe a couple conferences don't end up playing, how do you think that affects the sports card market for football in the short term?
I don't think it hurts football that much. It just hurts you and me and being sad, because obviously you would never stoop to being a Detroit Lions fan. So you're just kind of bum out of luck on football. But it would be weird for the card products, not having as many photos. Like, say that Clemson only gets through a couple games, or like something like that. It would definitely be weird, and it hurt the NFL more than I guess it hurt the card market. And it could hurt the new products. How in the world are you going to have, a 7-round draft when, you missed out on so many prospects?
Yeah.
I think that's definitely going to be tough. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, like, I couldn't be more sold on Trevor Lawrence and be hyped about him. I think coming in, I think he's the most NFL-ready quarterback I've seen since, like, Andrew Luck. So I'm definitely big hyped on him, but yeah, definitely it'll be weird for sure. And I think, it could definitely hurt, Topps and Panini, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the only people, like you said, like Trevor Lawrence, you have to be absolutely sold on some dudes that you've seen in previous years for probably a good bit of time, to be able to be confident in them, given that a full season might not occur or something like that, or, some teams might not end up playing. Like, you really are going to have to be confident in someone to want to go out and spend some good cash on football products next year. So I definitely agree that, like, next year, it seems pretty easy to understand, but I think that there's just going to be problems with the prices of rookies coming into the league next year, because no one will really know what to do. It's going to be a lot like what I think basketball is going to be like at this point without the tournament. That's where a lot of people really formulate their opinions during March Madness. So I think both the basketball market and the football market are going to have a little bit of trouble with trying to sell those rookies. But at the same time, I think that is kind of a good thing for some of the established vets, because you won't have people's money being put somewhere into rookies that are kind of unknown. They'll probably just keep putting it into more established guys. And then with football right now, I think it's kind of more beneficial, because if right now 2 out of the 5 major leagues aren't even playing, so in theory 2 out of the 5 major leagues fan bases are probably just watching football nonstop instead of any college football. Like, I guess they're not on the same days, but now, if you were deciding which day to watch or which day to spend more time watching, I mean, the decision's pretty much been made for you. You're going to be watching football on NFL Sunday. So
yeah, I mean, obviously with the Chiefs being the closest team to me, I'm going to have no problem enjoying some Kansas City Chief football this offseason. And I get to avoid some heartbreak, so it can't be all bad.
Yeah, ends up working out for you. You can definitely maybe see a championship this year. But yeah, that's going to be it as far as kind of the news of the last couple of weeks. Usually it's a weekly thing, but it's been a while since our last pod, so covered a good bit of stuff. And now we'll plug our Instagrams, because that's how this works. We both have cards that we want to show you guys, opinions we want to get out there. So Caleb, what's your Instagram? Where can the people find you at? They're also in the description, by the way, but what's your at?
Oh, yeah, it's at Caleb_sports_cards.
There you go. And mine is at Cutting Edge Cards, no G in the cutting. And yeah, that's where we post basically daily pics of what we got going on in the collection. We have a fat stack of cards sitting around, so there will be pics to come for quite a while, I'd imagine. And yeah, you can feel free to stop over there and say what's up, and obviously let us know your opinions on what we got going on. But
see the heat.
Oh yeah, see the fire we got going on in the ye old collection. But in terms of some things we're also buying and selling, we'll talk about some stocks of players and what we would be doing if in theory we had these cards, or if in theory we had a lot of money kind of sitting around. I know we've been buying a lot of stuff lately, so not as liable to buy right now, but overall still fun to dissect some of these cards and how they're doing. So the first one we'll start with is the Prism soccer cards. They've kind of been going on a little bit of a whirlwind. I've been uploading some videos kind of based around that idea. And what would you be feeling about the 2014, 2016, and 2018 sets combined? How would you be buying, selling? How do you feel?
I really feel like they've really started to stabilize. I've kind of seen it throughout. Man, there was a time where Alec was really ripping it for the 2014 set for how insane the prices were going, and you can kind of start to say you're right now. While they are more than originally, they've kind of calmed down on their prices quite a bit. And obviously, I still think, man, soccer has so much room that now that it's kind of cooled off and we kind of hitting this stabilization period, if you believe in soccer, as a whole, then I think it would be an okay time to get in. Maybe you wait a couple more months and see if it kind of keeps dipping a little bit.
Take a little passive approach.
But in the same light, like, soccer isn't going on right now, and we are kind of in the off season. So, I'd say if you have a couple players that you think are really going to do well this year in the Premier League or in the Bundesliga, then you're like, man, they kind of under the radar. I definitely think it could be a good time to pick up a couple, because, besides the big guy, Messi and Ronaldo, which really took off like nobody's business, I think that there is still some room there.
No, I definitely agree. As far as buying or selling, I would not be selling personally. I have a good amount of these Prisms, and I am not. I'm going to wait until the season kicks back off and stuff starts happening. And as far as what I'd be buying, I mean, you know, a lot of people that really, really follow soccer and are deep into the weeds kind of hate people that are just like Premier League fans, and I get it. But in terms of like, you know, American viewership and overall kind of overseas viewership in Europe, I mean, the biggest league is the Premier League, and that's where you're going to get the most kind of hikes in price due to performance. So I would definitely look there. A couple cards I kind of like are Mohamed Salah and Mane as well. Just a couple of Liverpool guys that will obviously be having good seasons, and I don't feel like they have the national team recognition to really get a lot of hype during the offseason as people start to get in. So I would.
Egypt doesn't have the hype.
Yeah, who would have thought? Who would have thought? Not the massive following you'd expect, but yeah, I think they're definitely buys. And then staying in the same vein of soccer, go on over to Timo Werner and Kai Havertz. We got a couple Chelsea signings that are going to be alongside the American pride and joy Pulisic. So, I mean, probably buying too. I mean, much of the same line, right?
Dang, you're gonna really? They've jumped up and you're in the buy category.
Well, I mean, yeah,
for Timo and Kai.
I don't know. I'd be less excited about Kai just because his prices have been pretty crazy, and he's not. I mean, I think Timo's just going to be more clinical and more of a goal-scoring threat overall. So, I mean, Timo's a little older, doesn't have the same, I guess, youth prospect hype that maybe Kai might have, but at the same time, when you're banging in that many goals, like I just I feel like the market's probably going to adjust for that. So I don't know. I mean, it's a soft buy, but yeah, I would be in the buy.
I feel that. Speaking of Chelsea, please do not trade in N'Golo Kante. Like, are you dumb? Like, he is so good in the midfield. Why would you? Like, when I saw that, I was like, why? So you can't have the ball get passed up to your wings?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I guess people argue that, you know, the other transfers that they could be looking at might fit their system better. But, I mean, if they need anything to fit better, it's defenders. They have gone kind of out of their way to sign
I mean, they've had a great offseason.
PSG. They've been spending money. But at the same time, it's like, I would definitely worry about defense, and Conte's going to provide that for you for a good bit. So I'm fine with that. I don't think you need to do too much else there. But, you know, at the end of the day, I guess they get paid the big bucks to figure that stuff out. But in terms then of, you know, kind of switching it up out of soccer for a second, we'll go with Luka Doncic. Would you be, like we said, you know, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, but would you be buying, selling, holding, just kind of waiting? What's your play?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of glad that my sendings off. I had some Lukas that I sent off, and I'm kind of glad I held because I was gonna sell like post bubble, and I was forced to hold, and I'm definitely kind of happy about it because the prices did kind of go up a little bit, but just the fact that I think he's all world, and I mean, if Giannis got you excited, like just how much he can score, pass, assist, just he's insane. So I'll probably be looking to buy some in the off season if it gets lower. I have some already that I'm holding. I'm big on Luka.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, like we said a little bit earlier, I would just kind of wait until you see a good dip that you want to buy on in the next month or two, and once they start to kind of bottom out, you know, you want to get in before the big hype of the off season. I mean,
yeah, if you wait a couple weeks after the NBA Finals, when it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and I don't think we're gonna get basketball till December, you know.
Yeah, that's what it's looking like.
There'll be a window.
Yeah, definitely just try to find that. But yeah, in terms of that, I mean, obviously we're buying on Luka, just maybe not at the exact prices right now. But even right now, still not a terrible buy, I guess, compared to what we've seen in the past and what he's shown recently. So in terms of soccer, we'll hop back onto it again. He's not really rising as of right now, but before, along with the Champions League hype, he was absolutely on a tear, and that's Mbappe. Personally, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't be buying like rookie stickers. I feel like those are a little bit overhyped, but like you've kind of been in on some Optic Donruss 2018 stuff, and maybe World Cup stickers definitely might be the play.
Yeah, luckily I bought before all that hype, kind of like you did too.
Mm-hmm.
So now, I mean, the prices are a lot more expensive. Like
they kind of come off
$150 for an optic.
Yeah.
Like for 2018. I mean, yikes. I mean, there's a lot of other good players. I think for your money, if you were going to take that, I would pick some other players that are maybe a little more under the radar, but they can score a lot of goals this season. Again, I think a lot more eyes are going to be on soccer because no football. And your Saturday mornings, you can fill it with the Premier League instead of college game day. So I'd probably still say just kind of staying away from it. I would go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree. I mean, on the overall trend of Mbappe, I don't feel like, this is necessarily a great time because at the end of the day, I mean, he is in the French league and it's kind of a league that's mocked because PSG is probably just going to run rampant in it again. So, I mean, how hyped are people going to be when, they might get hyped based off of some crazy goal game, but at the end of the day, they're expected to win. So I don't really know how much people freak out. And like we say, it's all about eyes and what people are looking at. And I just don't feel like people are going to be watching that much PSG. So
yeah, not until that Champions League, which is why we saw it do what it did. Yeah,
and maybe, I mean, the Euros too, you'll definitely get some hype there, but obviously that's a long ways away, so you still got time to buy and maybe look for another dip. And I mean, it's tough to say, but we saw him kind of get a little injured recently. And if he gets another nick, then maybe you buy in on that. But we'll go to our final player of the Rising Stocks section, and that is Jamal Murray. I think I know where you're at on this, but are you buying? You selling? What are you thinking?
I did sell, actually.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I loved 2016 Optic when it came out, so I scooped up a ton of it. So I had a lot of rookies from that year, and Jamal Murray was one of them. And so I was very happily unloading Jamal Murray's. But I will say this, he does look really good. It's really exciting for them. I don't think he's just a hype guy. He really improved last year, and he's really taken another jump this year. So I'd say that's really exciting for Jamal Murray. I said it in the podcast that went unrecorded, but
the Lost Pod.
I think that he's Ben Simmons like he is what people want Ben Simmons to be. He's a bigger guard that can do a lot, who's athletic and, can shoot. So he's exciting. So
one of the important aspects. Yeah, I mean, personally, I'd be selling as well. I mean, especially after what we saw tonight with the Clippers absolutely thumping them. I mean, it's probably what you imagine, but just having that added affirmation, it would probably be a time to sell. Personally, I sold before the bubble, so I'm pretty sad. I did not know that we were going to see this type of a jump by Jamal, but man, that's just the risk you take, and he has looked insane. So I'd be pretty hyped to maybe pick some up during the offseason in hopes that he can continue on this run of form that he's been on. But talking about, buying, selling, beginning of the bubble to now, we're going to take a look back in time. And typically on this pod, we do a look back in time where we compare a current player to a player of yesteryear and where their prices kind of match up. But today we'll be comparing prices of different cards during the beginning of the bubble and right now during the bubble and kind of how they've done. So you want to go ahead with the first one? What do we got?
Ooh. Zion PSA 10 base.
Ooh.
Then it was $900 at the beginning of the bubble.
Yeah.
Woo! Or like in the middle of the bubble. And now it's $600. So 33% decrease.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. And yeah, I mean, essentially all these numbers are from like the first couple days of the bubble. So it was weird. I mean, I guess with the Zion, he started declining pretty fast because it became ever apparent that the Pelicans weren't going to do anything. But
yeah,
I mean, at the same time, the immense hype that he had pre-bubble, I mean, I obviously kind of get it, but what are the Pelicans going to do? They're going to come out and beat the Lakers first round, and then what? I mean, it's like I don't know. You're kind of destined to fail if you were buying at the peak of the bubble, and I think that's going to be. I mean, we know it is, but you could have guessed this from the start. That's not a good time to buy. I mean, as soon as everyone's getting excited for the first American sport to kick back off, I mean, if you're buying at that time, I don't really understand what you're doing. But going over to the Luka PSA 10 base Prism, then it was $1,100, and now it's actually $1,300. So it's gone up marginally, just a bit. It was $2,200 10 days into the bubble. So it has taken almost a 50% hit since the big days of the bubble. Dang. But I mean, man, it's just crazy to think that like this dude. I mean, if you weren't believing in Luka, like we said, you are now, because he's obviously it. And to have that be proven to you and his card price is essentially the same post-bubble, like it just shows you how much the card market is just built on eyes and hype. Because what more do you need to see, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, out of sight, out of mind, you know?
Yeah.
It's really crazy. So, I mean... Again, it's not terrible. I mean, it's definitely not a terrible buy. 14% increase, right?
Yeah, after seeing what he can do.
Like, I feel like that's a pretty okay premium to pay for Luka Doncic at this point.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah. I mean, that's exciting. So at least somebody out of the bubble, kind of got some gains.
Yeah, someone went up a little bit. So if you bought that going in the bubble, I guess you hit the jackpot with the 14% return. Congratulations.
Unless you sold it after that game winner.
Yeah, that is true. If you had the balls to do that, I mean that would take some biggies. But I get it. I mean it's the peak of the hype. But talking about a guy that has nothing's really changed. LeBron Topps Chrome PSA 10. It's been on an absolute tear, obviously, as most basketball cards have. But at its peak, pre-bubble, it was $15,000 for the PSA 10 Topps Chrome, and now it's $13,000. And I mean, nothing's not changed. Obviously, they've locked in their spot in the playoffs, and then they went on to beat the Trailblazers in what was a pretty manageable series. It started off with a little scare, but I don't think that the Lakers have shown anything that would cause you to be too much more worried than you were originally. So I don't know, a $2,000 loss on a card that essentially hasn't seen anything is pretty crazy, and it's just showing, I feel like, that the bubble is deflating a little, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a big loss. Again, I was laughing at you a couple weeks ago if you were doing this. But you have, probably a lot more money than me if you're just throwing $15,000 at LeBron James. So,
yeah, you can take that loss.
Who's really laughing, I guess. But it's just crazy. Why? Now that you've seen in the playoffs, it is not a guarantee that LeBron James wins the finals. And I think that was kind of a wake-up the first game with Portland. Yeah. Obviously, though, they beat them afterwards, but it's, this is not an undefeatable team, And, hey, for Clippers fans who, that was kind of my thought, I'm not a Clippers fan, but just my thought going in, the Clippers were probably going to win. Then Luka does what he does, it's the NBA playoffs. Anything can happen. There's tons of talent on all the teams, and, nothing's a given, so.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to see a card drop when not much has happened. And at the end of the day, I don't know who's buying in on this card. Like you said, you must have a lot of spare capital lying around, but nothing's going to change. If LeBron wins this chip, people that loved LeBron still are going to love LeBron, and people that hated LeBron are still going to be 4-6. Congrats, 40% in the finals. Sick, you did it. It's not going to sway anyone, so I just don't think that there's going to be any added hype to that. And to round off the deflation of the bubble, I guess, we'll go with the Kobe PSA 10 Topps card. Not Topps Chrome, just the Topps. And this one's been on an absolute tear ever since, I guess the tragic news, obviously. Not great to talk about, but, it affects the card market, so you gotta. But going into the bubble, this one actually was doubling. It basically doubled in price in the weeks before. And I'm not sure if that's just basketball hype or, we talked about might be some shills in there, I guess. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, it went from 5,000 at the beginning of the bubble down to 3,300. And obviously nothing's changed. So it's nutty to see that kind of a loss on, a card that has literally nothing to do with anything going on right now. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
it's tough.
Obviously, awesome card. But there's so many 90s cards. I don't know. It still doesn't make sense in my mind. You know, if this card was going for, you know, a couple $100 before, you know, Kobe's death, you know, for it. I mean, I get the wanting to have a piece of, you know, a memory of it. Like, that totally makes sense. Why there would be, you know, some sort of bump. But, you know, I think that there's too many of these cards readily available for it to be even $3,300 still seems kind of wild. And that kind of gets me, you know, questioning, like, do you think that this bubble is the highest we're going to see cards? Or do you think that we got a lot of room and a lot of ways to go and there's going to be waves?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, that's the thing with basketball is, like, it's been absolutely on a tear for a long time now. And, you know, when does it start to kind of regress? I feel like when people are paying $5,000 for a card that was almost $200 and, you know, in January, it's like, I don't know how we get higher than that, to be honest, but, you know, I guess I never really doubt anything with cards. I could definitely just see it being more of, you know, like we talk about, like, it's just a now thing. People are just focused in the now. So I feel like, you know, we definitely could see cards that go on absolute tears of current players, but as far as, like, you know, people that are outside of the NBA right now, I mean, other than, like, vintage, I don't think that you're going to see, like, these people from the 80s to the 2000s have the types of returns that, you know, anywhere close to what we've seen lately. Like, they've just gone on tears, and it's hard to keep that up when they're not doing anything, obviously. I mean, it's just not in the people's eye, so.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting. Obviously, that's the $1 million question, right? If we knew, we would or would, you know, we'd stop buying cards or buy all the cards, depending on if we knew all those answers. But yeah, I don't know. I think, obviously, this was a very special situation. I don't think we'll see, like you said, like, we'll see cards do this. Like, there will be cards that, like Kobe's, go from $200 to $5,000 in a few months. Like, that's going to happen. But is it going to be an across the whole market situation where...
There's almost no way, you feel like.
Yeah, I feel like there's almost no way that from A to Z... like, we see another boom like this. But in the same light, like, we've seen so many cards go from, you know, we've seen a lot of undervalued cards. I feel like it gets snapped into the right spot, essentially. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the market adjusted, and I don't think that's, like, just going to fade away. So I feel like for those people that did get in on some things, like, you know, players you liked, I don't think it's going to collapse into nothingness. I think... I did think we, you know, because even with the Kobe's, like, obviously there is a demand. Like, if there is a demand for a 90s card, 90s cards aren't worthless, like, as much as we thought. So I don't think we're going to see, at least for a while. Eventually, I mean, who knows? But I don't think in the next 5 years we're going to see, at least in basketball. And soccer, I mean, we've seen it a little bit, but there is a chance that it does this, where market corrects, and it goes on a big tear like this.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely true. Like, some underrated, and, like, football a little bit too. I mean, there is some room there, and just, you know, other sports that people obviously have eyes on. But basketball, it's, like, across the board, like you said. Like, even people that, I mean, are just bad rookies are going for dumb prices now. And when you compare that to, like, legitimate players in other leagues, like, people
Soccer,
have staying
football.
power. Yeah, like, you know, it's hard to think that people would just be always willing to pay and continue to pay even crazier prices for, you know, bad or average cards in basketball while not going somewhere else with that. It's just...
Yeah. I mean, take Damian Lillard, right? So we have Damian Lillard, who his, you know, like, same rookie year as Julio Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Julio Jones is probably going to finish all time in wide receiving yards. And Damian Lillard, you know, is a borderline Hall of Famer. Like, and Julio Jones is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, and their prisms are nowhere close to each other. Like, you know, Damian Lillard's are way more. You could buy Julio Jones rookies for $12, $22. You know, Damian Lillard's, you know, for that little stretch there in the bubble where, what was it, like over $1,000.
Oh yeah, like a PSA 10 Prism was like $3,000.
Like, yeah, and like that's crazy. So obviously there's going to be room to grow, and I think there's always going to be market corrections, and like we're going to see bumps, like Alex said. Maybe this hype, obviously it can't last, but it doesn't need to for this market to be a stable, healthy, growing market. I don't think that we have to have these return rates all the time for it to still be a viable option for flipping and making money.
Yeah, to know a market's healthy, like there has to be dips. You can't just you can't just keep having this forever, because then whenever you have that regression, it'll be heavy and fast. It will not be fun. So it's definitely a good sign that we're starting to see this kind of dip. And that brings us over to we're not going to do this all the time, but we are an avid fan of the hobby, sports card collecting hobby, and one of the pillars of the YouTube realm is ye old Jeff over at Sports Card Investor. And we just kind of, you were listening to it. Personally, I don't always listen to him just because I get a little heated. He feels a little too hypey for me. I mean, I love the guy. He definitely helped me out learning stuff. But we heard today in his lies that you've been told in the sports card hobby that apparently there's no off season, that cards don't dip during the off season. And Caleb, you felt pretty strongly about this. I mean, from what we're seeing right now, this is just from the last 4 people that we compared with basketball. They're already dipping, and it's not even out of the season yet.
So his last lie, I will say the one that I did agree with. I'll give him some props first. He said only invest in the most expensive card that you can afford, and he said that's a lie. And I agree with, again, like I was saying earlier, like NBA hoops, Donruss, like you can invest in the lower tier cards and still see really, really good returns, like Prestige. Like there is plenty of room in those places, especially in basketball. I think a lot more than football and other sports. But so I think good job there. I couldn't agree more. I think that, you don't have to just invest in Prism, and that's not the only end all be all to make money.
Mm-hmm.
But his final lie was absolutely dumb. I don't know. I don't know if we'll pull up the chart here or something, but if you watch the video, he shows graphs of like February till now of the card market boom. And he said, he's like, in the hobby, people would say, oh, there's an off-season dip. And when he shows the graph, you literally see the market stagnate for months and months and months and months and months and months and months, pretty much from February until, a couple weeks ago, we start to see the market in football. He was showing football as an example rise, and then football goes crazy. Well, of course it's going to rise a couple weeks before the football season. We are a week away from football as we sit. Of course hype's going to start. People are drafting their fantasy football leagues. The commercials are on. People are buying jerseys. Like football is definitely in sight, in mind. We had college football on tonight. Their kids are starting to play high school football. Like it is football season, and we're entering into that. Of course it's rising right now. This is not like 2 weeks before the NFL starts is not the off season. You would be it's a ridiculous thought to think that 2 weeks before is the off season. No, the months before, where the market didn't move, where prices stabilized or even dipped down in the graph, where you saw it drop. Like if he would have just shown, like if he would have done a year spread where he would have showed season to ending and the just a stagnant line for months, it's clear that there's an off season. And I couldn't believe that he said that there wasn't one. And like the graph was right in front of him, and he showed this big jump, but like that's a month of action. Again, we're a couple weeks out from football. The silliest thing I've ever seen. Just so dumb. Like and we're gonna see it now, and I can't wait to talk about it. Like we were looking at what, Trae Young, He said, he said the last thing he said, the exception is for players that were really hyped this season, but now they're out. And it's like, just wait. They're going to continue to drop because guess what? It's going to be the off season and nobody's going to care because football's playoffs are starting. And then people will care after that's done because basketball's starting. So like it's a clear cycle pattern that is just silly for him to think that there isn't an off season when you just look at the chart and it was clear that there is.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I was just I was listening it through, your speakers and could just hear it, and I was looking up kind of what he was going off of at the same time. And sure, what he I think is looking at is the fact that these cards didn't dip. And he's like, see, they didn't dip. But the card market as a whole, if you look at basketball cards, even during the time they weren't playing, granted they're getting into the playoffs, but basketball cards, soccer cards, everything's going up during this time. And football cards, relatively stagnant. So compared to the market, that's a dip. Even if it isn't a dip, it's relatively a dip. Yeah, and when everything else is going up. So while it may not look like one, it definitely is. And the few people that he kind of used were, like we were talking a second ago about, correction in card prices relative to what they've done. He took Julio, who is obviously an underrated wide receiver, and as positional players have gotten a little bit more hype due to the inability to afford quarterbacks.
Yeah, because you don't want to spend $150 on a Daniel Jones rookie card.
Yeah, exactly. You might want to, grab a Julio for 20 to 50 before for a refractor. Like, it's pretty obvious that there was some correction there. He used Russell Wilson, which again is more of a correction thing. I was holding on to some of those cards. Like, it just was a naturally undervalued card compared to all the other quarterbacks and how they're valued. And then he used Cam Newton too, who's at this point, he's only just reached the price of which he had reached when he got traded. So I feel like that's just Patriot hype for the most part.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, he used very specific examples that had a big jump for kind of obvious reasons after a long time being pretty stagnant. Yeah,
and he used Patrick Mahomes, the man who just won a Super Bowl, who just signed like the biggest contract in football history that happened during the offseason. That is definitely not a fair comparison.
Yeah, where are all the normie card collectors going in football,
Or like Chris Godwin. Like, of course that's going to be because, the Buccaneers don't have Jameis Winston throwing to him. Like, cool. Like, duh. The greatest quarterback and probably arguably the greatest player of all football history went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you don't think that there was an increase, and like, I would hope there would be an increase. It'd be a bad thing if there wasn't for a card market. So,
yeah,
like, he was picking very specific examples, and like, of course there wouldn't be an off season on those things because any smart person is going to probably buy some of those cards as soon as that news hits to think, well, this could maybe go up this season, so this is worth a bet for me. So
yeah, no, that's essentially it. I mean, obviously we consume a bit of Jeff's content, so we're not haters. We're not people out for blood. We'll do that in the next segment. But I mean, we're just we're trying to rationalize what we heard and try to also talk other people into doing what's right with their money. And personally, what I think's right is investing in cards essentially as soon as they hit the off season, within a couple months, when the eyeballs are at the absolute low. And then of course, before season kicks back off, you're gonna get some hype. Like, that's how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, and we saw an off season with soccer. Like, Mbappe's went down, and you can say it's hype. No, it's because they stopped playing. They lost. They stopped playing, and it wasn't even a bad fashion. I mean, like they made the Champions League championship game, and it was a really, really close game. And the last time I checked, Mbappe's still 21 years old or whatnot, and or Pulisic. Like, Pulisic came off his best season, but his card prices dropped like a good 25%.
Yeah, 25-50 at the low.
Yeah, so that's, and again, he had a great season this year. Like, that's again super exciting. That's because there was an off season. So if you really believed in Christian Pulisic, like I did and Alec did, you were able to pick up some of those cards and kind of stop the bleeding, on that hype. So you didn't have to pay $600 for a card, but maybe you got it for $400. So
yeah, exactly. You gotta.
Basically, again, I'm not a hater, but I feel like some of his points, again, cards is a conversation, and when people are investing their money, we want you to think and formulate your own opinions. We know that he's very popular and he's done a great job for himself, and he is obviously doing well on content. But I think that his point, and sometimes it feels like he's a little more preachy and hoping that the card market will continue to do well, more than he is trying to say the most informed, formulated opinion that he can.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're going to pride ourselves on that, obviously, over the time, is just giving a raw thought on actually what's going on in the hobby. At the end of the day, like, a lot of his content, and not to hate, like, I get it, it's more fun to be positive and to try to lift up the card community. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's the most enjoyable to have a rationalized discussion on what's actually going on, instead of just, putting on your blinders and just pretending like profit will always be there no matter off season or not, because it's just not true. So
yeah, exactly. And like, even Alec and I don't always have the same opinions on everything. Like, even hearing this stuff. So it's, you have to think about it and, ask yourself those good questions, and you don't have to take us at our word. But, look for yourself. Look at the comps. You look at the numbers, and you can formulate it, your opinion the different way off that data chart. So I think that's the exciting and fun thing about it. And that's why, it's a market. Somebody's always going to be, when you have some opinion, somebody's always going to have the opposite. And that's why we're able to buy and sell those cards, and why it's a bunch of fun. So,
yeah. It's just us sharing our thoughts, and obviously not hating. We're just saying, people can have different opinions, and as long as you flesh it out in a good way, people can decide whether or not they want to join in on you. But as far as going out for blood, I guess in a different direction, rather than critiquing opinions, we'll critique players and kind of player development lately. So I guess for my first out for blood, I'm going to go with vintage soccer buyers. Personally, early on in soccer, whenever I was getting into this about 6 months ago, I was looking at vintage soccer. There's very low pop on it, so I get the appeal. You're not going to be able to find them all the time, and that's cool. But I feel like the biggest risk that you could be taking is with vintage soccer, because for so long, other than some goats, like a Maradona, a Pele, their prices are extremely out of my realm right now, but I get that those names will be out there forever. Once you start buying, like between 20th to 50th best players all time, just because they're vintage and there's low pop, I'm not sure you're always going to see the returns that you could be getting elsewhere. Maybe they might hold value just because there's enough one-off collectors that are going back and looking at vintage, but it's just tough, man. For cards that have held no value for such a long time, to suddenly think that, their recent surge is going to then stay there for theoretically ever, because these players are not going to do anything that'll be in people's eyes now. It's just not something I'm really a part of or want to be a part of. So, I guess I'm out for blood with them. I have no real problem with anyone collecting soccer, because at the end of the day, I think it's a good overall bet. I would just probably recommend to be elsewhere, not as much in vintage. So, yeah. Sorry I have to go after my own, but, you gotta every now and then.
It makes sense. Like, I get it from a collectible standpoint. It's really cool, but, like, there's not, it's just not that popular. And
it's tough.
In an era where people didn't care, and in America, it still feels like almost an era where, there is some interest, but it's still definitely not a vast majority of people watching soccer games.
Yeah, and if you're collecting vintage, you're hoping that people that used to collect will come back and buy those, essentially, and you can try to get their money from it if you're looking from a flipping perspective. And since those cards have held basically no value, it's just people that never collected them are going back to get them, and I'm not sure if you can always rely on that.
No, I agree. My first out for blood, I kind of said it earlier, but Damian Lillard buyers. Just hilarious. He's a great player and all, super fun to watch, but also extremely inconsistent. And while it's really fun to watch him shoot that game winner over Paul George, that's the first round of the playoffs. That's not the NBA championships. He's fun, but he's inconsistent. And people really saw that this year, against the Lakers. And he's not young by any means. This is in a time in his career where he's in his prime. And if you're going to be winning championships, it's in these years of his career. So I think that was pretty silly for people. Again, there's a reason Portland only had the 8th seed. And they had, I think, their best team that they ever had is because Damian Lillard is inconsistent. And sure, he can drop a good amount of points, game one. But then there was games where he dropped like 13, 18 points. You can't have your best player on a team disappear like that, like consistently, like multiple games, and expect to win. So obviously I get it, like some games, scheming or whatever, we have one bad night, but there was too many times where he needed to be dropping 35 points and he kind of just disappeared. So if you didn't know that Damian Lillard was not, a GOAT, and you thought that Carmelo Anthony was going to be the difference this year, like sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, yeah, we've definitely looked at that graph, and I mean, the low pop combined with, his ability to go off in certain games, I feel like is essentially why he had that big rise. And, again, like we say, whoever's spending $3K to $4K on a PSA 10 base prism of his, they probably have enough money to where they're, I guess, fine without it. They'll live.
Hope so.
Yeah, you can only hope. But in terms of another one that I'm out for this week, I mean, it is the football season. Again, I'm going at things that I guess I'm not really, as a whole, I'm not down on football, but Drew Lock buyers, I mean, it's tough. Because at the end of the day, however good Denver can be, I just feel like, you're always going to be second fiddle in that division for a long time coming, because it's not going to go your way. So, I guess you can hope and pray that maybe a defense could carry you along with it, but I'm not really sure that that's going to be the case. And at the end of the day, you'll be fighting an uphill battle from the wild card perspective. So to be buying, basically a rookie at this point, it's just like, man, I don't know. And then, I mean, with all these cards, like kind of my approach, and I mean, we talked about this, I guess, off the pod because it was a long time ago, but I feel like the undervalued segment of these markets is kind of like 3rd to 5th year guys that are too far away to get that rookie money, but they haven't shown enough to get that long-term money. So, there's definitely times I feel like in the next couple of years you could really get in on Drew Lock if you want to. And even if the football card market moves upwards, you could be somewhere else in the football card market making more money and getting more returns. So then eventually, whenever he's at a decent price, you could probably get him for what's relatively cheap at the time compared to what you've made. And I just don't think that there's any reason that you have to be, buying now on someone that isn't going to give the results that you want right now. So again, I kind of like football overall, but I mean, Drew Lock buyers, especially, I mean, it always comes back to me. I just compare every rookie or, anyone, I guess, in their 3rd year-ish to Deshaun Watson. And when you compare those prices, like Deshaun's just so much better. And I just couldn't imagine paying close to that for someone that's just going to be in a wild card at best. So
yeah, I mean, there's so many guys you could put on this list. I mean, shoot, like, even Baker, like.
Yeah, Baker, Daniel Jones.
They're all kind of in this same pool, and I get, like, Drew Lock's exciting. And I really, really like Jerry Jeudy. I think, gosh, he's so NFL ready. I'm excited for them, and I think he's going to be a good weapon. And I think Drew Lock can have an okay season. But just like you said, like, what are you going to do when you have the Chiefs twice a year on your schedule?
Yeah, it's tough. There's not a whole lot you can't do.
I mean, that's just tough. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And my roast is not buying GOATs. Why are you not buying the best players you can? Again, on this Damian Lillard path, like, maybe you aren't buying LeBron James right now, but like Steph Curry's wide open right there. Just a nice buy for you. Or even like Kevin Durant, or not basketball. Like, there's Messis that aren't expensive. There's Ronaldos that aren't expensive. And these are the best players in the sport, and there's always some angles to be had on those players. And those are the players that people are going to come back to in the hobby in 10 years. like you said with soccer, it's about, sometimes when you're selling cards, like it's about things that people either had when they were a kid or they wanted when they were a kid. And if you're not buying those players that transcended the sport, like again, like, Messi, Neymar, Ronaldo, and then the next two on the list were LeBron James, Steph Curry on the most expensive, making money. That means that those 5 guys are the most popular athletes in the whole world. And I think, again, like LeBron and Steph, like Steph's so undervalued on the top 5 names that like kids, guys our age know, like from 24 and under know. Steph Curry and LeBron James are on that list in America. So like those two are definitely buys. And I think Steph is way underrated. I think he's hurt a lot of people's feelings by winning a lot of games, and people really love LeBron, so has made a lot of people unhappy. But
Dame doesn't make anyone unhappy.
Yeah, exactly. So again, but that's what winners are gonna do. I'm always gonna say that. Like that's the reason why LeBron can be polarizing and Steph. It's because when you are a winner, you are breaking fans' hearts over and over and over again. LeBron is Celtics fans are gonna hate him because he stole Ray Allen from him, because guess what? The Celtics stopped winning, and and like he dominated the East. And Steph Curry, you're gonna hate him because you loved James Harden, and James Harden ain't getting past Steph Curry, and LeBron, and KD left your favorite team to go join Steph Curry. The winners are gonna break hearts, and but I think again, those are the cards that people are gonna go back to, because when you watched basketball from 2010 to 2020, those are the 2 names, So that's 6 out of the 10 championships in that era. So. I think it's silly, especially when some of them are still at a pretty good price point, to not be buying GOATs.
No, I definitely agree. And I mean, even like going back to like moderately vintage not soccer, but basketball. I mean, there's a lot of really
Tim
affordable
Duncan
stuff back there. I mean, yeah, it's just, and I mean, like we said, the 90 guys have still popped, but I mean, compared to, how crazy some of this modern stuff is, I mean, it's definitely doable. And like 80s cards, I mean, you get like Larry Bird second-year cards, which are like the first, card with him like singularly by himself. Like those are still really affordable. Like
and they've been rising, but I can't agree more. I snagged a couple of them. They're super sick.
Yeah, and then I mean I talked about it on Instagram one day, but like Kevin McHale was like less than T.J. Warren, So it's like, I mean, I get that vintage basketball isn't as cool or isn't as I guess hype to be involved in, but at the end of the day, it's it's people that like you said, transcended the sport or actually achieve something that are going to be worth more than all of the 99% of the people that will eventually be has-beens, and you'll have wasted your money on if you actually hold through. So
yeah, exactly. When kids, like when your kids are digging through your cards in 20 years, like they're only going to be looking for like 2 names or like 3 names,
Exactly. My dad's got a ton of cards. Yours does too. And we could sit there and look through a bunch of nobodies. It's like, man, if only you would have, got in on what was actually the thing back then. And obviously, people have to make decisions on money and when to buy and sell stuff. But at the end of the day, you'd rather be sitting there with a ton of cool cards and not just a bunch of randos that had a couple of big games that you didn't flip on. So it's definitely where you want to be. And, talking about people that may not be making the best decisions with their cards, anyone that ships me cards and duct tape, I mean, I am literally out for blood. I might hunt you down if I end up messing down that card, because it's so annoying. There's nothing where, and the biggest problem for me is, and you as well, we've been buying a decent amount of stickers from Europe, and so this definitely goes out to the EU people. I don't know if there's any still listening, but Jesus Christ! If you're using like Scotch tape duct tape to fucking seal up your cards, like, man, it's so bad. I had to conduct
like a heart transplant surgery. I got like a 2006 Ronaldo first year World Cup sticker, and I was like, it took like 30 minutes of me as carefully as I can not getting duct tape on this thing, because like he taped it like a ridiculous amount, and it was open heart surgery to not ruin this card. Oh, okay. I couldn't agree more.
It's tough. You had like a corner peeking out too.
Yeah.
It's just not where you want to be, man. Just go out, buy yourself a roll of painter's tape. If you're not using painter's tape, you're doing it wrong, and you might be forcing people to mess up their cards. So that is who we'll end it off this week with. Just anyone that's doing that, please feel free to just. I mean, if you need it that bad, I'd send you a roll. I don't even care. But.
We're gonna start a Patreon.
Yeah, we'll take all the Patreon money. We'll send it out to people in need of painter's tape. Little GoFundMe for you. But speaking of giving out, give out painter's tape. We'll give out our picks of the week as well. So Caleb, you wanna kick it off?
Yeah. Again, we've been talking about it, but I think there's some really good soccer players. You could be getting, Alex said it with Mohamed Salah. Really like him. He led the Premier League last year in goals. I think he's going to probably do it again. So I think that'd be a great get-in, again, like Timo Werner or some of those guys that you really believe in. Or a bunch of Liverpool guys if you're really high on they're going to win it again, or a team that you really think's going to do well. I think there's a lot of guys, or,
Man City. They're all cheap as hell.
Yeah, I mean, Aguero, like, just dirt cheap. I was picking up Olivier Giroud for nothing. Like, there's a lot of really great players in there that are not too expensive.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm going to, kind of follow in line with that. I really only have one pick of the week, but it's all in the same kind of realm, and that is, just rookie stickers and cards in soccer. I tend to lean more towards stickers because I feel like, if you're looking for an initial return, it probably is the best investment, if you want to put it like that, strategy to, buy in on Prism right now. Then once the Prism hype hits, sell your Prism, and then go buy rookie stickers. Because the way that people are going to learn this market, they're going to start with Prism, and they're going to branch out from there. So if you want to get the most out of it, that's probably the way to go. Like we said throughout this pod, Premier League, probably where you want to be just because it's going to have the most eyes, and most importantly, the most American eyes. So, that's going to play a big role, and we didn't really see anything pop off too much last year with Prism. If you look at like Premier League Prism prices, they're basically nothing. So I don't think that this market's been tapped into enough, or as much potential as it can essentially get. But yeah, like I said, the basketball heads, that's the first place they'll dive into, is the Prism. Then eventually they'll stray away from it. So you want to be a part of that. And as far as where I'd be looking, Messi Ronaldo stickers, from World Cup years, we've been buying a ton of those, like you were talking about with the open heart surgery. That was all based around 2006 Ronaldo, so definitely up that alley. And yeah, in addition to that, personally, I'm a big Gio Reyna fan. I enjoy, his potential. I'm not as much of a fan of the price of his Topps Chrome and Types Chrome, like silvers, but at the same time, I understand it. The dude is looking insane at such a young age. He gets even a lot of like European love, and Europeans are pretty hard to please, especially if you're American. They're not quick to show love. So I'm pretty excited for that. I'd be looking at his Topps set, the little Dortmund set cards, the black background, or if you want to go for the living set, that probably isn't too bad of a buy either, considering like Pool of 6 living sets, decently expensive. Not expensive, but compared to Gio Reyna's, and Gio Reyna's is actually in a rookie year, I think it is definitely going to hold more value. So I would, say any Premier League team you want to go with, any guys you want to grab there, feel free to do that. Messi Ronaldo's, again, can't go wrong with that. And then Gio Reyna is a nice little prospect with the undervalued type of card, is definitely what I'm all about. So that is it as far as what I'm buying. What's your last pick, Caleb? What you got?
Yeah, just again, some of those older soccer guys, that are, kind of played in this era, that are kind of still around, maybe just got out. I think, again, maybe the distant past might not have hope, but for a lot of people who did play, FIFA and stuff like that, with some of those really good players that you had on your ultimate team or whatnot, I think there's still some good chances for them. I think even, for some of the American guys like Dempsey and Landon Donovan, I still think there's like room for them. And, just European guys too. Like I've been picking up a lot of Andrea Pirlo because He's pretty awesome and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's what I've been swooping on. Just a lot of, some vintage soccer. Not like vintage, but
yeah.
I guess
in art, the way we use vintage is like our lifetime, People, I guess, for us it's a little bit different, and I definitely agree in that sense. Like, looking back, like kind of what I was roasting is like people that, are buying like 50s and 70s and kind of 60s players. And I mean, a little bit extent to the 90s if you're buying because Zidane's one that's gotten just his cards of like 10x recently. Obviously, look at comps and go for like people that have not popped yet, ideally. But there's still, a ton of room with early 2000s legends that, again, everyone that's in the card market, like we're saying, it tends younger, it's trending younger. And then eventually in 20 years, they'll probably come back to it. And we haven't really mentioned it this pod, but we talk about it a decent bit. And that's that, FIFA has a massive following both in the States and worldwide. And the FIFA Ultimate Team's pretty big. And there are tons of people that do trading on there. There's tons of just aspects that people are still going to end up, I think, being attached to cards at the end of the day. Once they fade out of that game, where are they going to go? Yeah, if they like flipping, they're going to go to the FIFA card market, or the real life FIFA card market as an example. And then, people that enjoy the game, eventually they're going to want cards because that's kind of what they grew up with, essentially, in kind of a pseudo way. So there's a lot of potential for kind of a younger generation to be put onto cards, and they'll remember, people that they saw when they were a kid. So in the early mid 2000s and maybe even a little bit before that. So I definitely agree. I think it's a pretty good buy if you can find yourself some guys that you think people will want to like eventually. And we're kind of big on like the Barca team, just an absolute load of legends there. So I definitely agree. I am with it. I think that we're pretty soccer heavy this week, but for good reason. There's tons of stuff to go on in the future. It's exciting.
And it's the off season, so it's cheaper.
Apparently, yeah. Jeff might disagree, but yeah, I think this is definitely the time, and I'm excited to have hashed that out with you today, Caleb. But that is going to be the end of this episode of Sports Card Corner. Caleb, I'm guessing you had a good time, bud. Nice little hour and a half of digging into all this.
Oh, it's always a great time. You will see me scroll on eBay all the time looking for deals, so I'm always down to talk cards. It's always a blast talking to the fiends.
Yeah, talking to you guys, talking to each other, just having a good old time. But again, Caleb, your Insta for the last time. Give it a little plug.
Caleb _sports_cards_.
Nailed
follow
it.
Me there and
Nailed it.
Yeah, comment on all my cool cards, and I'll give you that follow back and see all your cool stuff.
Oh, yeah. Love seeing what other people have going on in their collection. But that is going to be it for us today. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, make sure to leave a like. Let us know anything you want to down below if you haven't already. And if you want to see more videos like this as soon as they go live, make sure to hit that subscribe. And with that said, hopefully you guys have a wonderful day. And peace. Peace. Bang, bang. Let's hope the recording goes well.